Thank you, for joining PCEC's community conversation today about the Wellness Center. PCEC hosts these community conversations as a part of our ongoing series about community planning, where we discuss tools and planning strategies that help us foster positive growth and growth that's determined by the public and for community benefit. It's really exciting to have so many people here, and I'm really excited today to be talking about the Wellness Center, because this is something, I think we've all kind of heard about for a while. I remember when I was working at the enterprise about 5 years ago, I went and did a tour of the pool with the city manager, Michael Cardos at the time, and Sharon Holmes, and just got to and did a story on just how much water was going into Fleshman Creek all the time. And I think, and so at that time we were talking about we talked about that problem, and then I also wrote about some of the proposed solutions. And I think I'm just really excited to hear more about the Wellness Center, kind of where it's at, what it looks like. And so today we have Livingston City Manager Grant Gager here, and we have some representatives from the Four Ranges Foundation as well. And so, I guess I just kind of wanted to do that. And then I'm going to do a quick introduction about PCEC. So PCEC is your local community conservation group with more than 350 contributing members and more than 3,000 supporters here in Park County. We work to safeguard the land, water, wildlife, and communities in Yellowstone's Northern Gateway through grassroots organizing and advocacy. And this is really something that the Wellness Center, PCEC, hasn't really taken a position on, because we're here to learn more about and see, we get educated and hear feedback from our members. And so I think that the other thing that's important to know is this will be on the City Commission agenda on July 18th. So that will be a great time to be able to give your feedback up from now until then. And so Grant, I guess I'll just let you take it away and kind of give us an update on where the Wellness Center process is at.
I appreciate it, Jonathan. Thank you for putting this event together, and thank you everybody for joining. I'll note before I get started, I've asked Andrew Field and Chase Rose, who are with the Four Ranges Community Recreation Foundation, to join us. And a little bit of background: Four Ranges was started in 2018 before I got here with my predecessor, and earlier this year the city signed a memorandum of understanding related to the project with the foundation. And so the foundation's role is to manage the fundraising aspect for the capital construction, and the city is working on the other aspects of the project at this point, which include the project location, the programming / building layout, and then also the operating arrangements that'll support the facility if it's eventually constructed. And so I am happy to run through and give a little bit of an update on where we are with those four project elements, and then after that, happy to take any questions that come. I will say this is really only the first of several outreach events that the city and I have planned over the coming weeks related to the project. And I'd encourage anybody here that doesn't get their questions answered to come down to the farmers market this afternoon. I will be there with our recreation now director, Maggie Tarr, and several county or city commissioners to answer any questions and share more information. So with that, I will get started with the update. And so hopefully everybody can see the screen that I'm sharing now. I'm basically kind of run over really three pieces here. Reviewed some community feedback that we've gotten on the project, again, update those 4 elements and then talk about the approval process moving forward. So in 2019, the foundation led a community assessment that identified an indoor pool, a gymnasium, and a walking track as 3 most desired recreation amenities. And the city did a survey in May of this year, and we had 564 respondents, and 77% of them did in fact indicate that the community assessment was still accurate in their mind, and the 3 most requested amenities remain the pool, the gymnasium, and the walking track. And our goal here really was to ensure that as the project moves forward, it is still reflective of community need, and that appears to be the case. Importantly, of those respondents, the vast majority of them were in a neighborhood that was eligible to attend Park High, and I'll just put a pin in that for now. That'll become a little bit more important later on in the conversation. And so, interestingly, when we did this survey in May of this year, we found that actually not many people really use our facilities, the pool and Civic Center, with any regularity. In fact, less than 25% of respondents could acknowledge that they used it more than once within the last month or the last week, and a great many of them, over 50%, had only used it, once or so within the last year or more than a year ago, which tells me that there's a lot of folks that probably don't use our facilities, or not as many as we think. But what was encouraging is that we've found if the city were to build a center with an indoor pool, gymnasium, and walking track, 50% of the people said that they would use it several times per week. And so, like I said, there certainly is an untapped potential there within the community for new recreation facilities, which is encouraging. It really tells us, I think, that we're on the right track with at least considering the project and evaluating it, hopefully bringing it to fruition. And also importantly, the vast majority of folks that we polled in May identified themselves as likely voters. About 95% were either definitely or very likely to participate in the coming election. And then we did a little bit of testing on, so the operations of the facility are more than likely to be funded through the creation of a special district. The city of Livingston does not have room in our general fund budget to really increase the amount of support that we provide for recreation programming. And so Montana state law allows a special district to be created to fund an entity like this. And so we and it would be funded through a property tax levy. And so we tested that at a home with a appraised market value of about $300,000, and having that level be about $100 per year in additional property taxes. And at that level, about 70% of those that were polled favored supporting that ballot initiative, which again is rather encouraging to the project. And so an update on the 4 project elements. Again, with regards to programming, our recent feedback has confirmed that a gym, indoor pool, and a walking track are the primary recreation needs. However, the original 2019 assessment also included, community meeting rooms showed up as a fairly large desire of the community, and that showed as well in our survey. And additionally, we saw, certainly in the most recent survey, a desire for some other indoor sport uses. Pickleball was specifically mentioned, but there were a number of other comments related to a kind of just an indoor multi-sport area. And so moving forward, This Friday, the city will put out another survey to really kind of hone community input related to aquatic features and also the availability of a child watch or child care facility within the wellness center. The survey will touch on more things than that, but related to programming. And that survey will come out this Friday, will be available. There is I've started a project page on the city's website. So if one were to venture to livingstonmontana.org, there's a red banner on top of the website that leads to the project page. And the survey will be posted there and then distributed through the newsletter as well. With regard to location, and there's quite a bit on location on the project page, but I'll run through that all now. The city since signing the MOU with Four Ranges Foundation in early March, the city has gone into a bit of a analysis period and internally and with some external support. The team and I evaluated 13 possible project locations. Many of them were on property that was owned by the city of Livingston. However, we also worked with other public agency partners, including the school district, to evaluate some non-city owned property, and similarly had some conversations with private landowners regarding some opportunities that may exist there. And these 13 possible locations were evaluated on really kind of 4 high-level criteria. We looked at, their just overall accessibility, and then also ownership, because that certainly plays an ability or a role in our ability to deliver the project, and then size, ensuring that each parcel was large enough to handle a facility of the size that we're talking about, and then utility connections, because those can actually be a fairly costly part of the project. And going back to size, I think now would be probably an appropriate time to at least talk about that a little bit. Certainly, as we look at the funds that have been raised, and we'll get into some more detail there. But at this point, it looks like we're thinking of a project that might be in the 40,000 square foot range, and we get there basically based off of the assumed fundraising ability and current construction costs, which we anticipate construction costs, hard and soft, all in somewhere around $700 a square foot. So we'll see where we land on that, but that is kind of our operating assumption on size. And so the city has narrowed the project down to 4 finalist locations, and all of these locations have been tested to ensure a building of 40 or 45,000 square feet. This is maybe a little bit outdated. Just recent project conversations we're thinking the facility ends up closer to 40,000 square feet, again, just based on fundraising, but perhaps Andrew or Chase will speak to that here in a little bit. But the 4 finalist locations that I'll run through with you all real quickly are the current Civic Center site down in the Miles Park, Sacagawea Park area. There is the N Street Park, also known to some as Katie Bonnell Park, and that sits on North N Street and Bennett Street. And then there's the Northside Soccer Park. There is an undeveloped portion of that park that the city owns. It is just east of the Armory building. For folks familiar with the area, there's a large mound of dirt that the city owns there. And then the Washington School site is the 4th finalist location, and that is one that kind of came about late in the process in later April, when the school district noted that school was going to be closed for the coming year. And so, just briefly, the Civic Center site, if one includes Miles Park, ends up at about 4.75 acres, eliminating the band shell, the Miles Park band shell and grassy area. It gets down to about a 3-acre parcel. It is entirely owned by the city, and sufficient utility capacity is present. The location is currently served by Windrider and sits approximately 0.2 of a mile from Park High. Importantly, for the project, as we work through the capital fundraising component, the vast majority of funds at this point appear as though they will come from private donations. However, there is a program called the New Market Tax Credits that a portion of the city is eligible. There are 2 census districts in the city of Livingston, and one of them is eligible for New Market Tax Credits. And that funding source, if we're approved, is approximately, we estimate, around $4 million of capital funding for the project. So it is not insignificant, but I would also say that it certainly from the city's end is not necessarily driving the process in its entirety. The second site is the Katie Bonnell Park over at M Street, and the blue shaded area that I didn't really do the best job of shading is the current city park, and that's 1.8 acres. This other rectangular piece that fronts onto Bennett, that's just east of Katie Bonnell Park, is owned by the railroad, and my conversations with them have indicated that they are open to contributing that piece of land to the project. So at this location, we'd have almost 4 acres, 3.8 acres of land available, and city utility capacity is present. M Street Park, Katie Bonnell Park, is currently served by Windrider and sits approximately 1.6 miles from Park High. This location does fall into the New Market Tax Credit Zone, which is encouraging. And for you longtime Livingston residents on the call that are aware of the plume and the railroad issues, I wanted to share this map that the State Department of Environmental Quality has provided, and one can see this green triangle here is M Street Park, and the most recent mapping of the plume is the blue line, which shows in 2020 that the park was outside of the plume. And talking to both DEQ and Livingston Restoration Group, there is more recent data has shown that the plume has actually receded even farther down south towards the railroad track. So we have been told by both DEQ and Livingston Restoration Group that Katie Bonnell M Street Park is sufficiently outside the plume, and that poses no hazard to the project should it be located there. The third location is the north side soccer fields out on 13th and Bitterroot. And as I indicated earlier, the city owns some undeveloped portion of that land that sits at about 2 acres, and it is fully owned by the city with sufficient utility capacity. Windrider does serve the area. The current bus stop is a little bit north of this picture, just off the top side of it, and we are at that location 2 miles from Park High. And I'll point out, I've included the distance from Park High for each location because there was some initial conversation earlier in the project that the Civic Center site was ideal because of its proximity to the students, and so I've included that here, but I'll have a little bit more on that in a few slides. The final finalist site, the fourth finalist site, is the Washington School location. It is a 2.25 acre parcel owned by the school district, although they have agreed to engage in conversations with the city so long as we are all interested in fair market value for the parcel, which certainly the city is not looking for any handouts in this project, and we understand that fair market value is reasonable. And importantly, utility capacity is present. The site is served by Windrider currently and is a little over a mile from the high school. That said, the distance from the high school is relatively important, but I don't think it really is the only factor. And so the city has been working with the good folks at Montana State University's geography departments, and they have been kind enough to put some of the most recent census data into block by block data into a map for us, and one can see the 4 project locations are all outlined in a dark blue. And in this map, the greener an area is, the higher concentration of households with children. And so when one looks at this, the north side soccer location, here we can see that generally it's very green around there, which is to say there are a lot of families with children here. Conversely, if one looks at just the current Civic Center site, there's a little bit of a data issue here in that, yes, we would not expect there to be any families living in Sacagawea Park or in the school district location. So that's why those are red in the next to no families area there. But even this was a little bit surprising to me. Even the area kind of south of the tracks, the historic downtown area, is more in the red orange, which says only probably 20 to 40% of households in that area have children. It gets a little bit greener if we come here, which appears to be somewhere west of probably about 7th or 8th Street. There's some more children here in the southwest part, but when we look at it, really the children appear to live either in the northwest part of town out by the soccer fields, or in the northeast part of town out in the Green Acres area. Again, a bit greener there. Another way to look at the project really is kind of what's the median household income, and this one, somewhat confusingly uses the opposite scale where red is more, and so there is a higher income in the red and orange areas and a bit of a lower income in the green areas, which again, there's no income in Sacagawea Park or the school facilities, which is why they're the darkest green. And so, in that way, we see that, while the northwestern part of the city out by the north side soccer fields has a lot of children, it has a slightly higher household income than, say, the northeastern part of the city by Katie Bonnell M Street Park there, which is a little bit greener and has therefore a lower household income. And so really just an interesting way for us to be able to evaluate each location, because while there may have been a lot of initial focus on proximity to the Park High and the school complex down there, as a guy with 8 and 9-year-old boys that attend East Side, I know that they're not in school now, and actually they're only in school about half the year. So I think using a little bit of a different lens to also assess where children live probably is useful to the project, not just where they go to school. So related to the capital funding, Chase and Andrew may have more updated information, but the foundation is responsible for the capital fundraising component of the project, and our most recent conversations have indicated that about $18 million has been secured. There's another $2 million or so that's actively being considered by donors, and so a little bit of a gap to get to the target of $25 million in private funds, and of course there's that new market tax credits that I mentioned earlier, which could be a possible addition of approximately $4 million or so to the project if it ends up in one of those 2 locations, and if the project is approved for the tax credits. And just a little background on that: it is a federal program that is designed to attract private capital in low-income areas. As I mentioned, there are 2 census tracts within the city, and actually, interestingly, it seems like after the new census map is adopted and new data comes through, that we actually will lose eligibility in the one district perhaps later this year. However, so long as we make meaningful progress on the project, within 12 months of the new map, we should still be eligible. So it is a powerful funding mechanism, but there is perhaps a little bit of uncertainty of the project's ability to capitalize on that. And then as far as the operating arrangements, I mentioned that the wellness center is likely to be supported by a special district that will be created pursuant to state law. The creation of that district would be a question put forward to voters, and so we are working now to answer really the first two parts, the location and the programming / building layout, so that when we go to the voters in November, we really have a very coherent project that hopefully everybody can get behind. And at this point, the city is contemplating a district that would share the boundaries of the Park High district, and that simply is just a matter of the level of the assessed value of the property in those districts. The city of Livingston has a much smaller footprint and therefore smaller assessed value, and so spreading the expected operating cost of the facility over the city might be unaffordable to voters. And I think given the information we saw in the survey that folks in Park High District were amenable to the project and to supporting it, I think we are encouraged to use those district boundaries as we move forward. So the path forward from here will rely on several approvals. The first of those will come at July 18 at the next meeting of the Livingston City Commission, where I will ask the commissioners to designate their preferred site location. And then no later than August 14, the Park County commissioners will be asked to approve putting this item to the creation of a special district to voters. Statutorily, that needs to happen 85 days before the election. And so this year, that 85 days is August 14. I've been working with the county commissioners, and we will very likely do that maybe a week or so before August 14, just to give us a little wiggle room. And then on November 7, if all goes well, the question will be put to voters in the district, again, likely the Park High district, and hopefully they will provide approval to move forward with the operating funding for the project. And so that really is all I had intended to kind of lead with. But that said, I am happy to take any questions that anyone here may have. And I guess, Andrew or Chase, if there's anything that I may have missed that you'd like to add, this might be a good time to do that.
How about Grant, that Chase give an update on the fundraising?
Yeah, happy to. And Grant, thank you. Good work. Folks, City of Livingston has been a tremendous partner, and Grant's doing a great job of organizing this from his end. We really appreciate it. Just quickly, we deeply appreciate this opportunity to visit with you and provide the update. I will get right to it. Number one, we are now sitting closer to $19 million that has been secured to date. And in fact, I walked out of a very inspired donor conversation just this morning. A gentleman committed another 175 today. And so we're very, very thankful that more and more folks continue to see the opportunity, the impact, and frankly, a really compelling need for this project. Folks, I will mention just a couple of items that I think are important as we consider this as a community. Number one, Missoula, Great Falls, Billings, and Bozeman are all currently considering similar facilities, and all of them are putting the majority of that burden on the taxpayer to pay for those facilities, right? Livingston is currently the only community in the state of Montana that is trying to raise and secure 100% of the construction capital required hired via private donations. And I think that that's pretty incredible that we're attempting to pull that off in Park County, and we're this close to making it happen. This, of course, facility, no facility that makes this level of impact is going to be free. And that's why we have the special district and even a modest membership fee. But I will say a couple of things on that quickly. One, this is likely to be the single most affordable wellness center in the state of Montana when you consider the fact that all of the private capital has been raised, and you consider the fact that Four Ranges Foundation will continue to exist in the years ahead to raise money for access scholarships. We're going to attempt to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to make sure that families who need the support to access the facility will have it. Our goal is this facility is 100% accessible and inclusive, period, no matter what. I also know that this group and your good work with environmental concerns, there are serious environmental concerns with current facilities, with a pool that is leaking thousands of gallons of water with close proximity to the river. We have a civic center. I learned to play basketball there. I learned to swim at the public pool. But for 50 years, it had a septic drain field about 25 yards from the Yellowstone, right? So we have an opportunity with this project to build a gold LEED certified, environmentally sustainable building in our community. I think that that's something that we can all be very proud of, very excited about. Folks, as we look then finally at the site selection, we understand that there's various opinions of the site, and we really appreciate the engagement. Several people on this call have already provided feedback. We want to get the right site that meets the needs of the community and also addresses those concerns. From our chair at Four Ranges, we believe that the two sites that are eligible for new market tax credits, that's the M Street Park and the current Civic Center site, we believe that those are in the best interest of the community, one or the other, so that we can capitalize on potentially $4 million in federal funds. If we do not have those funds, we could have some hard choices to make as it relates to the design of the building. So we're hopeful one of those two sites rises to the top of the list, okay? We also understand, accept, and acknowledge that the current Civic Center site has some flood risk, and people have articulated that. I would point out, however, that we've had professional engineers evaluate that on multiple occasions, including just recently from WGM Group. They, in their report, and Andrew put it in the chat, they have indicated that a 500-year catastrophic event would likely result in 2 to 3 feet of standing water at the site. And so if we do select that site and build there, we would simply build 2 feet above the base flood elevation. So in short, it absolutely can be built at the Civic Center site, but we acknowledge there's some flood risk. We do not deny that. And therefore, there's obviously other sites that people have been contemplating. My final comment, folks, is today, I would ask you to please consider endorsing this project. Endorsing this project, members of a lot of you, active, will miss the project. Any of these, but if center site,
Chase, I think you're having some connectivity issues.
Why, folks, am I back? Guys, am I back?
Only partly, Chase. I'll take over for you until my internet goes bad. I think what you were going to say is we would invite the PCEC as a very important voice in the community to endorse this project. What we didn't go into yet in this presentation is the need. And what really got our lead funders, which is Arthur M. Blank Foundation, represented by Tanya Mraz, and the Candida Fund, represented by Tim Stevens, they amount to $15 million this funding. And what really got both of them excited is, as many of you know, the AMB West Foundation has done a lot of work on mental health, on teen mental health, senior mental health, et cetera. And, Park County historically has double the teen suicide rate of Gallatin County, that's a crime. That's a shame. Much of it can be attributed to the fact that the kids got to make it through a 7-month winter. And unless you're well off enough to be able to go skiing and your parents are available to take you skiing, there's nothing to do. There's no place to safely congregate, etc. And this facility is seen, and the programming that's contemplated for it is seen as being really crucial. There will be times and spaces for an outpost of the Livingston Food Resource Center, counseling, and other mental health activities, as well as when the school bell rings at 3:33 in the afternoon, 200 plus days a year, they can get out and in a 4-minute walk, be at certainly the Civic Center location. If any of the other locations end up being the City Commission's selection, it will require some transportation infrastructure that doesn't exist today. And as Chase said, we do, as the people primarily doing the fundraising, whereas the city is doing most of everything else. We think that blowing a $4 million hole in the budget would really set us back. The other thing I want to say about, so we're at 23-ish with new market tax credits. We haven't gone public yet. I don't believe I've asked anybody on this call to write a check yet. And don't worry, I've recorded all your names off of this Zoom. We will be coming with you and asking you to consider participating financially at a level that's meaningful for each individual, which is really what we've been asking people to do. And when Chase, as our fundraising consultant and grew up in Park County, when Chase and I have sat down with high capacity individuals, we have not gotten a single no yet. And we've gotten some very significant yeses. And we haven't taken this public because you don't build something of this size $100 at a time. We'll take the $100. It's going to be very, very important. But the other thing is that First Interstate Bank has graciously agreed to finance pledges. So if somebody wants to pledge, let's say $50,000 over the course of 5 years, $10,000 a year, we don't have to wait till 5 years go by to break ground, because at a very favorable interest rate, First Interstate will fund that. So the reason for this is body, mind, and spirit, total wellness. That's why it's the word wellness, not just recreation. And the other thing is, a friend of mine, her dad fell walking in Livingston last winter because our streets and sidewalks are sometimes very icy and not safe. Imagine, if you will, this basketball court with half of it being a regular sized basketball court, an elementary school basketball court, the other half having a bunch of seniors doing pickleball. And if you haven't seen pickleball days at the Civic Center, it's worth going just to visit. And then an elevated walking track around it. And imagine when our seniors can be walking up there and they hear the noise and they can look down and see everybody recreating. I think that Livingston, which punches above its weight in so many categories, the arts, literature, music, obviously the view and the close natural surroundings and its culture and its historic downtown, I think this would be, or will be, I guess I should say, it's going to be kind of a capstone in a way of our amazing city in rural Montana. So we would, of course, invite PCEC to take a stand and advocate. And Chase, I don't know if you got back on. I guess the internet service in Bozeman's not as good as Livingston.
Apparently that's right. Yeah, apologies about that, folks, but I think Andrew covered.
Great. Well, thank you, Grant and Andrew and Chase. I really appreciate it. And thank you for taking all this time to raise money for this project. And I'm really, excited. And it seems like a really great vision. So yeah, I guess
Hey, Jonathan, one last thing. So one of the members of the foundation board is Carolyn Reeder, who I'm sure most of you know. She says this is the third time she's been on a committee in a quarter century trying to get this done. And I think Grant acknowledged correctly that no site is perfect. You know, no site is within walking distance of every child in the community. There's anybody can come up with objections to any site. But I think we really need to go after this and make this happen this time. This is our opportunity. And let's not make Caroline be on a fourth board in 10 years.
Well, yeah, so I was just gonna, say if anyone has questions, just start putting them into the chat or raise your hand and I can call on you to ask a question. I think I just wanted to start with a question I had. Grant, when you're talking about your survey or poll, what was that a scientifically significant survey or poll, or was it a survey that, or I was just wondering if you could give a little bit more information about that.
Yeah, it was. And with the number of responses we got, it looked like we had about a 5% margin of error on our.
Okay. Great. And then I think Tom McNamee had a question about it being on East Street or like in the downtown area. Was downtown considered?
It was, yeah, and I saw that question. I thought it was a great consideration. You know, the unfortunate reality with B Street, there's somewhat of a patchwork ownership of those open spaces. The city is one owner, the school district is an owner, and the Lincoln School and some other private entities are other owners. But really, actually, even if we were able to thread the needle and assemble all of the land, it wouldn't be large enough to house the facility and the expected parking demand. And so, yeah, it was on the list, but it made it off didn't make it to the finals for a few reasons.
Cynthia had a question. Are there any donors who will not agree to the Civic Center site due to the flood risk? I don't know if Andrew or Chase wants to take that one.
None that I've encountered. Look,
Yeah.
there are going to be people opposed. I saw an objection to near the soccer fields because it's hard rock or something like that. No site is perfect. And I think that we need to acknowledge that no site is perfect. And Grant has looked at lots of sites. He's been sharing this with me, and he's narrowed it down to 4 that are potentially doable. And anybody can nitpick or complain about any of these sites. And I would just encourage all of us to overcome that and finally get this done. I mean, I moved here 34 years ago next month. And I think in the first year I heard, oh, we're going to build a new recreation center.
I will say, you know, just to that, early on, when the city announced that we were looking at alternate sites, and as we got into that, you know, in some conversations, in some settings, there were some folks that shared with me that, you know, they wouldn't consider donating to the Civic Center site. But, you know, when we kind of stepped back and started to look at other locations, I've been approached by people that have said, you know what, the city is heading down, you know, a good path here by evaluating sites, and, you know, they seem more receptive. Certain folks seem more receptive to giving to the project, you know, based on the approach we're taking now, and have also told me that if it goes into a different site, you know, they and the foundation they're affiliated with would consider donating to the project while they have not done so yet. So yeah, I do think that, you know, each site has different, you know, potential for donors, and I think we'll probably find out more, you know, when the preferred site's named by the commission on the 18th.
Yeah, so just to be clear, what's the next process? It's going to be in front of the commission on the 18th. What are they talking about, or what are they deciding?
Well, we will. They are going to determine what their preferred location is, because this facility will be a facility that is owned and operated by the city. It is rightly the city commission's decision on where it should be located. And so that will be the question before them on the 18th. All the data that we've gone through, they have seen. There will be some more, including the results of the survey that we publish on Friday, and also the feedback that we'll get tonight at the farmers market and next week at the farmers market. And also I'm going out to visit, other employers and get some data from them as well. So, and I'm hoping community members will show up on the 18th to express their interest, but ultimately at the end of the day, it is a commission decision on where to locate city facilities.
Leslie, I see you have your hand raised. What, do you want to unmute?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Oh, there you go. So my question is, I've received quite a few phone calls from seniors over the years, as you can imagine, wondering when the Civic Center opens so they can go in during the winter months and walk. It doesn't cost them anything. It's free for them, and it's something that quite a few of our seniors in the community rely on. So my question is if you pick a different location, say M Street, for example, will the rec center remain open for these services for folks for free? So, that would be one of my concerns. And, also, what does it look like for the seniors in our community for what they would have to be paying, not only on their taxes, of course, but what, additional fees would they have to? We have such a limited income from so many people in this community.
Absolutely, Leslie. Fantastic questions. I appreciate it, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'll take on those. As we get into this, it does appear more and more likely that there probably is a future for that Civic Center facility that may not include demolition. I was in Livingston, North Dakota recently for a city managers meeting, and spent some time with city managers from other Montana cities that are doing the same project we are, and we toured the 250,000 square foot wellness center that Livingston has, and then the next day I had lunch with the gentleman that oversees that, and he admitted to me that their former facility did not get knocked down and that they kept it in service, and it was used in a different way, but the community still had need, and that's a community that built a 250,000 square foot facility. So, I would offer that very likely the current Civic Center gets some sort of future use. I've had some conversations with the new school superintendent, and I think they can see some uses. I think we as a city can see some uses. So, I think there's some questions to be dealt with there. And as far as access, I know that Chase mentioned, membership fees and scholarships. I would offer that really is, if it is a city facility and a city managed facility, that really is a decision of the Livingston City Commission. And I will say that both myself and a number of the commissioners feel fairly strongly about free access to public facilities. Programming might be a little bit different if somebody wanted to participate in some sort of class or some sort of facilitated event. I think that's different than just coming in and using a walking track. I'm pretty firm that somebody that's paying for this facility to operate through their property tax bill ought to be able to walk in there for free. And like I said, as I've had conversations with my commissioners, they feel the same way. So, there's a little bit to be settled on the operating model and what exactly the tax levy will be. But those are questions we will have answered here in the next few months, certainly before the November ballot. And when I crunch the numbers, I inherited this project when I joined the city in November, and when I looked at the operating budget that had been created, there were a number of issues with it, and so I've worked with my finance director and the recreation director to really kind of put a finer point on what that operating budget will be, and it sure seems very likely that it can be operated affordably using property tax mechanism with no membership fees from those folks that live within the district.
As well as, just to tag on to that, there's, I think, Grant, you told me the current operations for the pool for 10 weeks and the Civic Center year round is about $300,000 a year. So if you take that and you take, let's say,
I really would encourage you to stay in the kind of the lane of the fundraising, and the city commission will kind of handle the budgetary matters when we get to that point.
Sure.
Thanks.
I kind of wanted to ask, there've been a number of comments about the floodplain. Wendy Weaver had a pretty in-depth comment about the FEMA floodplain study, which I think we know that they're updating that. So I just wondered, what do we need to know about the floodplain? I mean, is it going to be safe to build it there? Is it going to, just because it hasn't flooded for the past 80 years with a changing climate, we don't know what might happen in the next 80 years? Or I guess, how should we be thinking about that? Or how are you thinking about that?
Jonathan, take a look at the hydrological report that I put into the comments. It assumes that the levee is not there, because that's what you have to assume in a 500 year. Normal building standards are 100 year, but I don't think anybody thinks that we're not going to see more years like last year. And as Grant has pointed out, we had a 6-hour high water event. If it were a 6-day high water event, the south side of town would see a couple feet of water. And so, the Sleeping Giant Middle School was built many years after the old part of the high school. And even the newer part of the high school, you'll notice they're built up. And they're, so you mitigate it. There's 100 miles on either side of the Mississippi that would have no buildings and no cities. And I went to school in St. Louis, so that would have been a shame. If you couldn't build responsibly in an area that is a flood potential. And as I said, there's many other there's other considerations. To me personally, I like the walkability to the schools, to the kids, but and the fact that the city just I think within the last 2 years hooked up that location to septic, which it wasn't on before, so to city sewer and water, which is awesome. And you just do it in a responsible manner, in the same way that everybody in Livingston has to build to accommodate the wind and our seismic zone that we're in, and our snow loads that we get.
Yeah, I guess I would also offer that, again, it's a decision of the city commission and folks like myself that have the responsibility not only to operate these facilities, but to ensure the community's ability to have a point of refuge in a natural disaster, or otherwise use the facilities. When the event happened last year, there were children in the Civic Center who were evacuated before noon that day, and that is our community point of refuge, and it was unavailable for that event. And so I can assure everyone on the call here that the city commission perhaps approaches these types of questions a little bit differently than the general public, and I do acknowledge that a building can be engineered to be in any location, but the wisdom of putting our kids in such a situation is something that we consider very seriously here at the city of Livingston. And so that's why we're having this process and going through this dialogue and location evaluation. So there really is just a full community awareness of pros and cons of each location. And I'll say, as an administrator who will very likely be responsible for operating this building, it does give me pause. To think about putting it on the riverbank. We had an incident last year where it got pretty darn close to overtopping, right? And we know that FEMA and the Army Corps are going through a floodplain mapping process currently that will likely result in a different map than we have today. And when they look at the levee, their assumption is that anything above the street level does not exist, because it's not engineered, and it's I guess questionable safety in an event. So that is something certainly that the city is considering and will continue to consider as we consider the pros and cons of all locations. I'll note there's a number of questions in here about crossing and about north side access, and certainly that's an issue with 3 of those sites. But the city is working on a number of initiatives there that happy to get into if you folks would like.
Let's see. So we only have a few minutes left, so I just wanted to make sure if you want to touch on the crossing issue, that's something I've been wondering about. And then also, if you just want to add, what's the best way for people to give their feedback? Coming to the farmers market, filling out the survey. Yeah.
Well, good question. I will say the best way for folks to give feedback, and I will share my screen real quickly. So hopefully everybody sees the city webpage. And so the best way to give feedback, up here in the upper right-hand corner is a button that says Contact Us. And if I click on that, there is a form, and somebody can submit their information or their comments on the project. And then when that happens, this is the project page that is accessible by hitting the banner at the top. We are logging all of the public comment that is received. Wow, we've had quite a bit here in the last few days, haven't we? All right. So all of the comments that have been received end up here. And so, yeah, I would invite anybody that has, comments to give to log them there. And then also, the survey that comes out on Friday will be linked off of this project page as well.
Well, great. Well, yeah. Well, thank you, Grant and Andrew and Chase and everybody for coming. I really appreciate you just taking the time to talk with our members about this important issue. We'll definitely be sending a follow-up. This has been recorded, so I'll post it on our YouTube this afternoon. And yeah, thanks everyone. I don't know, Andrew or Chase, if you had any closing remarks you wanted to make.
Just thank you
checkbook's
for
ready.
being engaged. Oh, sorry, Andrew. Thank you for being engaged. Thank you for the opportunity. And thank you for considering endorsement of this project. We're here for any questions.
Great. Well, yeah. Well, thank you very, very much. And yeah, we will send an email out with to everyone here with how to comment. And so thank you very much.